Tasha, I'm glad you unmuted for a second because I was trying to figure out whether or not the sound was just missing, but at least I can hear.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We are transitioning back over our closed session link. If Commissioner Mohammed was able to join us, see Commissioner Coy. Commissioner Reed.
Vice Chairman Roberts, I was always told talking to yourself was a sign of brilliance, so now I know it's true.
I'm brilliant. I've tested it time and time again.
That's what I said. Now that I see you doing it, I know it's true.
Thank you, Chief. Dr. Juckins, I just want to make sure I don't see Commissioner Reed or Commissioner Mohammed, but I also want to be respectful of everyone's time.
I am also not seeing them. We have Coy. Let's see where they're at.
Okay, so I'll get started and they can join us in motion. Good morning, everyone. This is Committee Chair Chantel Roberts. I would like to welcome you all to the November 21st meeting of the Operations Committee. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the meeting. Additionally, if you are not a board member, or the CEO and her staff, please turn your video off. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is on the call. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. Commissioner Andrew Coy.
Commissioner Coy, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Mohammed. And Commissioner Reed. Vice Chair Roberts is present. Members of the public who would like to provide public comment to this committee can do so by signing up beginning at 9 a.m. the Thursday before the meeting until 5:00 p.m. the Monday before the meeting date. Individuals or groups are interested in providing comments to the committee may sign up one of three ways: to contact the board office at 443-642-2095 or visit the board office at the Alice G. Pender Hughes Building at 200 East North Avenue, room 406, or emailing the board office at schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us. Up to 5 individuals will be given the opportunity to provide comment to the Operations Committee. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes. All public comment should address operations-related issues, and sign-up is not permitted the day of the meeting. In addition, the chat function during our virtual meetings will not be used as a tool for gathering feedback or answering questions from the public. If you have follow-up questions or feedback and did not sign up in advance to provide them during the committee meeting, please send an email to the school board at bcps.k12.md.us, and board office staff will provide you with a response. Now that that is out of the way, good morning, everyone. We have a full operations agenda today. We can get started with our first presentation of the morning, which is our fiscal year 2024 supplemental appropriations to capital projects fund from general fund assigned fund balance overview. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. We had submitted, this is Mary Ann Cox, the Deputy CFO. We had submitted documentation for the supplemental appropriation. Do you want us to just go through that briefly? And then
Yes,
if you have
sure.
any other questions, okay, Jonathan Turner, can you go through those PDF files for us?
Good
He
morning,
just
Mary
sent-
Ann.
Good morning.
I'd be more than happy to. Which of the three documents would you like me to start with?
Well, the actual supplemental appropriation is the one that says the debits and the credits. You know, I think it
Okay.
was the second one that we had submitted. Cindy Smith is also on this call, and she can talk about the proposed usages for this money, you know, for the GAP fund. And I can explain what we would do from a financial standpoint. As we close our books for FY 2023, the CEO as the board assignee or delegate may approve the amounts placed in assigned fund balance. So this is done as part of our year-end closing every year. So this is the request. So we had a certain amount of money in the assigned fund balance. And then based on the projected uses, the COO office has asked that we submit a supplemental appropriation for $33,233,500 to transfer this money to the capital projects fund so that the renovation and addition work can begin. So Cindy, do you want to talk a little bit about what this project is about?
Absolutely. So this is Cindy Smith, Executive Director of Facilities Planning, Design, and Construction. So Armistead Gardens has been in our capital improvement plan for several years. It is a severely overcrowded building. We currently have 2 10 classroom portables on site here to be able to hold all of the students that are at this school. So we've had this project in the works. It's been designed. It has been bid, and the bids have come in with our lowest bidder at the $70 million mark. Now, state funding for the project is only at $37 million based on the original estimate for it, which was put in, of course, pre-COVID, and COVID prices have gone up significantly since COVID. Along with lead times of materials, pricing has just gone exponentially higher. Unfortunately, that leaves us with a gap to be able to actually start construction on this building to put our students in facilities that are way more appropriate for them than, you know, all these portable classrooms out there. So we do need the $33 million to be able to close that gap and start the construction on the project.
Okay, are there any questions about that? So an amount actually exceeding $33,233,500 was placed in a general fund assigned fund balance at year end. So they're just asking for us to transfer the 33.2 million over to capital projects fund now. So are there any other questions?
Thank you so much for the overview. No questions from Commissioner Coy. Commissioner Mohammed? No questions?
None.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the overview.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Reed has joined us via phone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Oh, Commissioner Reed, do you have any questions about that?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the overview. We can transition to the next presentation for the budget update, which will be a combination of Kerwin and fiscal year 25 budget development. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
We can. Hi, Gordon.
Hi, how are you guys doing? So
Awesome.
we have our monthly budget updates as part of the budget development cycle. This month, our word of the month is enrollment, both for enrollment projections and enrollment adjustments. So we're focusing on enrollments for the update. This cycle, we're actually going to spend a little bit of time digging in on what we mean by the different enrollment numbers that we cite. We've heard before, why are there so many different enrollment numbers? Why isn't there just one enrollment number? So there are good reasons for that. So we'll talk about what those different numbers are, and we'll actually dig in a little bit on the enrollment projection process. That's something that the Ops Committee has asked about previously. Commissioner Coy had some questions when we discussed last time. So we wanted to dig in a little bit on what takes place in the projection process and talk through that a little bit and see if the board has any questions and if this information is helpful. So, as I mentioned, we're going to start with looking at the different enrollment types. We summed it up really into three main categories. So we have enrollment that we use for revenue, enrollment that we use for our allocations, and enrollment that we use for adjustments. So enrollment for revenue. So we take the enrollment information as of September 30th, and this enrollment is what we call usually our official enrollment. So this gets presented by Office of Achievement and Accountability to the board, goes to the state, and it's really how we as a district get funded. So when you talk about our Kerwin funding and the allocations that we get as a district, both for our Kerwin and local funding, they use this official 930 enrollment. So there are very specific business rules as to which students can and cannot be included, how they're counted, the periods of time in which we can count kids, et cetera, and how that gets treated is very specific and gets reported to the state. Now, the state uses that information in a couple different ways. You'll see it in our Kerwin information, like we say. It's generally referenced for MOE and other calculations. One of the things that you do see as a nuance in the Kerwin funding formula, they've made allowance for how enrollment is used. So we actually get the benefit of using the most recent year or the average, rolling average of 3 years, so the greater of. So for last fiscal year, we got funded for fiscal year 24 on the rolling average, which is the greater of the two. So you see that 71,510 in the table below, instead of what would have been funded, the 69,639. So we got the benefit of that. You also notice that there's no 2020 in that table. So COVID year 2020 was excluded from the average. So it takes the average from 19, 21, and 22. But essentially, the short version of this first enrollment group is it's how we as a district receive funding, receive our revenue. Second enrollment type is enrollment for allocations. So this is essentially how we fund schools. So there's a little bit of a time delay between when we get funded as a district and then when that money gets allocated to schools. So we get funded based on the September 30th enrollment, like we said. But by that point in time, when we're starting to build the budgets for the upcoming year for schools, the school landscape has changed. The kids who were in grade 12 have already graduated. There are new kids coming into kindergarten. New grades have opened. So there are different dynamics at the school level about how school enrollment is allocated. So we adjust the original enrollment from the fall before and use what we call an enrollment projection for the allocation that we do in the spring. So we do this in the hope of being more accurate to what's going on in the school at that point in time, as opposed to using the enrollment from the previous fall. We also know that, and we'll get to it later on, that we're going to adjust that enrollment in the following fall for the students who are actually in the school. So you've heard us reference the enrollment projection process, and I'll talk about it a little more on slide 8. But again, the synopsis here is that this is the enrollment that we use to fund schools, and it takes into account the information that we have on schools coming up into that new fiscal year. Enrollment for adjustments. So enrollment adjustments takes place in the fall, right around now. We take the enrollment as of September 30th. just like we do for the revenue enrollment that we take as of September 30th. But the business rules are a little bit different. So what we're doing with the fall enrollment adjustments is, following the sequence, we projected enrollment in the spring, funded schools based on that enrollment. Then we check in the fall to say where are kids really now, and then we adjust the school budgets based on that change. But the business rules that we use, like I said, are a little different from what we report to the state in terms of revenue and we get funded on. We are a bit more flexible. So the state is very stringent, of course, on which students can and cannot be funded based on eligibility rules, et cetera. These students, as we know, are still in our schools and still in our buildings, and our principals still have to provide educational services for these students. So we want to make sure in terms of how we fund the schools that we're accounting for all the students that are in the building as much as we can based on that September 30th date. So the rules that we have are a little more flexible internally. And we also break it down a little bit differently. So the state funds us in very specific categories and we need to report out on those categories. But when we allocate that funding to schools, we need to do so on a school by school, grade by grade basis. So our projection and our enrollment adjustment figures have to be a bit more specific so that we can get to that granular level of information for how each individual school is funded. So just as a synopsis, the first category, enrollment for revenue, is how we get funded as a district. Enrollment for the projections is how we fund the schools, that's the allocations, and then we have our enrollment for adjustments, which is how we update the school funding to match what the actual enrollment is for those students in that school year. So the enrollment projection process, and I apologize in advance for getting in the weeds a little bit or getting a little nerdy, but it's actually a very interesting process. We start with the September 30th enrollment information. We do what we call a cohort survivability analysis. So essentially we look at the rate of change of a cohort of students as they, kind of progress from one grade to the next. So going from kindergarten to first to second, third, kind of looking at the same group of students on average in a school or, based on that specific location, do we generally see a rate of change or increase or decrease of whatever percentage? And we apply that going across the different cohorts. So that's, a simplified version of that analysis. It's a little different for entry grades because there's no previous, year's information that we can average out. So for K, for 6th or 9th grade, depending on the school, we use averages or trend adjustments based on 3 or 5 years, depending on the amount of years of significant information that we have. We also go through school by school to kind of look at, on a case by case basis, whether or not there are any statistical outliers in the information. Are there things that need to be adjusted for specific to the school? In the case of charters, it could be charter caps. It could be grade configuration changes. School that used to be 6 to 8 is now 6 to 12. Some of these changes that we see based on the portfolio decisions that we make as a district, whether schools were opened or closed, moved in and out of swing space, new buildings because of the 21st Century Program. So we try to account for as many of those adjustments as possible in the initial projection, numerical projection. Once we complete that numerical projection, we do a review. So we look at individual outliers. So we have a formula basically flags anything that has a greater standard deviation than the threshold that we set to look at any variances on a grade by grade, school by school level. We try to analyze the reason for that change. As you can imagine, COVID years created some variations. Examples like things I mentioned about swing space. If a school goes into swing space, you could see a significant drop. Coming out of swing space into a new building, you could see a significant increase. So we have to go kind of case by case and determine which years we want to use, which years we may want to exclude. Does it make sense to do a 5-year average in this instance if, they only changed grades, 2 years ago? Do we want to use a 3-year instead? So we do a significant amount of tweaking school by school. And we go through this with a qualitative feedback group in central office, folks who have knowledge on enrollment from enrollment choice and transfer, folks from operations team who know what our seating capacity is in our buildings, folks from Office of Initiatives, who know some of our portfolio information and charter, nuances. So we do get feedback from a lot of different folks in central office. We send those numbers out to the schools as well, letting the principals know in advance that, the information that they provide can be taken into consideration, but doesn't have to be for the adjustment. So what we reach out to find out is really if there's anything going on at the school level or information that they have that we're not privy to. Like, an example is, a new apartment complex opened up across the street from the school. School's been seeing a lot of interest from families saying, hey, we're going to be coming over and registering this year. We might not have that information. So, we do try to give an opportunity for feedback at the school level. A lot of the time, that feedback is generally positive or optimistic. I think a lot of the school level information or expectation is that the numbers will be higher than projected. There are other instances where schools say the opposite. No, we don't think we're going to get as many kids as you're projecting. So we do a little bit of back and forth. We ask for some of the reasoning or justification with those decisions and the feedback that they provide. And then we finalize that information internally. So we kind of go school by school, taking into account the feedback that we've received. We decide whether to accept, reject, or compromise on the information that we get back. And then we communicate out the final decisions on the numbers to the schools so they know, what their enrollment will be for the upcoming year. This year, we're actually doing that process a little bit earlier. Last year, I think we did that in January. The numbers and numerical projections went out to schools this morning. So we're looking, over the next couple of weeks for schools to look at that information, review it, provide feedback. We give them a Google Sheets form that they can fill in the response, and then we take that information back and then do our internal qualitative feedback session. So that is this month's update. Any questions on the different enrollment numbers, the enrollment projection process, or any of that?
Thank you so much for the presentation, Courtney. I will open the floor for questions. Commissioner Coy?
Yeah, I have a number of questions and I appreciate the presentation. First is perhaps a quick one. In the revenue calculations, it uses the rolling average for what this year will be. How much of a decrease does that represent versus what the rolling average was for last year? Just trying to understand, what are we looking at from last year to this year in terms of revenue solely based off of student change?
Yeah, for 23 to 24, it was not a significant decrease. I think it was less than 1,000 students, I want to say. I'd have to look it up to see, but it was not a significant decrease because of the rolling average. If it had been straight on 22 to 23 enrollment numbers, it would have been about a 2,000 student decrease instead.
Yeah, well, and this gets at the broader sort of question that I have, right? Which is enrollment, demographics are changing across the country. This is not unique to Baltimore City, but certainly does impact us. And so one of my questions is enrollment dropping faster than we had previously thought or projected? And is city schools student enrollment dropping at a different rate than other districts in the state?
Two good questions. So it's a little tricky to decipher in that way because there can be anomalies from year to year. Some of the things that have factored into what those official enrollment numbers look like are some of the allowances that we've had for immunizations or some of the things that we've done internally. Like this year, for example, we've made a much larger push as a district on getting some of those immunizations done. So that's going to help, decrease the ineligible count. We do, as a district, look at 10-year projections. Our facilities team works on that. We look at birth rates for the city as a starting point, as one of the many inputs that go into it. We have, and continue to see a lowering in the starting information and birth rates and capture rates, for us as a district. As to what it means compared to the other districts, I can't say off the top of my head. I could look over the last few years to kind of compare to see if our rate of change, is similar. But my expectation is that I think we actually fared a little bit better in the COVID years than some of the other districts in Maryland. So that bodes well for us numerically. But looking over a period of time, I think we could take a look at that to see.
Yeah, I certainly would be interested if somebody went back in time to see what we projected for now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, just to see if our projections were, what degree of variance there was, right? They were, obviously, business projections are guesses, best guesses.
Yeah.
But I do think
We've
that this.
actually, now I was gonna say in that regard, we've actually exceeded or done better than some of our projections had anticipated. But again, I think depending on the time you do those projections. So when we take into account projections that we did in 17, 18, 19, kind of like when we were dropping significantly in those years, the trend would have, kind of followed that same sort of, decline. We got to 19, 20, and we sort of hit a little bit more of a plateau, so it smoothed it out a little bit. So there's still a little bit of a decline, but it hasn't been as significant as it was, the years before that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the attention to this simply because, demographics of the country at large are such that school districts have to think about declining enrollments for the future and the funding that flows from that. So I appreciate the attention to this.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
do have one
Commissioner
other
Coy.
question, but I'm happy to let Commissioner Mohammed or others ask questions before I ask a different question.
Commissioner Coy, thank you. Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes, so I think Commissioner Coy hit on what I wanted to touch around the drastic reduction. So I think I'm good.
Commissioner Reed. Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. Commissioner Reed.
Courtney, thank you. No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Is your question quick, Commissioner Coy?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
My question relates to individual schools. You referenced some of the analysis that you've done here. I'd be interested in seeing what schools, a list of schools that faced significant enough changes that they would have had to have staffing changes from projections to then adjustments.
Yeah, we can look at that. I will say though, there'll be a lot more schools facing staffing changes because you can have a change in enrollment of 3 students that results in a staffing change. It just depends on how close you are sort of to that precipice or that breaking point. So you don't always get a good correlation between the change in enrollment and some of the staffing changes. Another nuance of that landscape is, as a district, if the overall enrollment number, the pie sort of being the pie, increases, the per pupil amount then decreases. So you could have a school theoretically that goes up 1 kid, but each student is, in terms of dollar value, a little bit lower. So they could actually decrease in dollars even though their enrollment was flat. So there are nuances between the changes in enrollment that don't always directly correlate to the changes in staffing. We try to mitigate that as much as possible by just doing staffing changes for the major changes, which we've done over the last few years. As Kerwin has moved us forward in terms of how we need to report on enrollment changes, and especially starting next year, we're going to have to go back a bit to our old methodology of adjusting for every single upward and downward change, which we've been trying to spare schools over the last few years. But it's one of the mandates of Kerwin, kind of moving forward. But yeah, we could take a look at that information, or we can discuss if there's specific thresholds you want to look at for those changes, and we can work with that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for that overview, Courtney.
No
I
problem.
believe that is it for questions on this presentation. Thank you so much. We can
Take care. Have a happy holidays.
transition. Thank you, you too. For our compliance reports, we have compliance report, ADG, sustainability presentation. Good morning.
Hello, good afternoon or good morning still, everybody. I am Joanna Pisunier, and I'll be giving the compliance report for ADG sustainability. And I'd like to pause one moment, do this differently. Okay, is that coming through okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. So with me on the call today are a number of my colleagues from operations, so they may be jumping in for answering questions. So thank you in advance to Catherine Toller, Sharika Bolden, Raj Bachubai, and Gabby Venus, who are here with us today. So my first piece is that this work sustainability aligns with all of the board policies. It also supports multiple strategies and other policies that the board has passed. To just set the stage and sort of the context about what we're talking about and why we're talking about it. The first is the what, and really there are two broad categories of this. The first is about our students and environmental literacy and nature connection. So how are we supporting our kids in class and out of class to build knowledge and agency about nature and the environment? And the second is about our school buildings and operations, and how are we building and operating our facilities and our grounds to be more energy efficient and nature friendly. And the why we're talking about this, which is of course related to the what, is that we believe that really all of this work funnels in and supports the goals that we already have as a district. So we think that this will help improve our academic outcomes, our mental health and physical health outcomes. It will allow us to provide a more equitable experience for our students and our staff, and that it can also, while doing all of those things, help us reduce our impact on the earth. So when we finished the compliance report last year, we set a couple of focus areas that we were going to have for this year. And so you'll be hearing about those through the presentation today, because we did make some good progress on those. The overall message I want to share with the group is that we have advanced our sustainability outcomes and made some good progress. At the same time, that much work remains to maintain that work and expand it. The big push and effort of last year was to update our sustainability plan. So we met with 55 staff people within the district. We met with external partners and stakeholders. We talked to partners, other school districts, et cetera, and really worked to try and identify goals that furthered the goals of each department, but that were also sustainability related. So we have these 7 areas, goals of the sustainability plan. The first 6 are all continuation of what we had in our first sustainability plan. And then we added a 7th of promote environmental justice and equity. So I encourage you to take a look at the full plan that really has lots and lots of individual goals and metrics of how we're going to be measuring success. What I'm going to be doing today is just a very quick run through, giving a couple of examples of each of these. In the appendix are some additional items that we won't have time to review as a group. So the first category is developing environmentally literate students, and I want to call attention to our meaningful watershed educational experience, which is a bit of a mouthful. That's referred to as a MWE, and is a curricular program that requires an in-class experience, a field experience, and an action project, and is required in each of our elementary, middle, and high schools. And so we've done a great job of adding those to our science curriculum, working with partners to help with that field experience. And yet one of our challenges is having our teachers stay in their roles to be able to continue to teach what they were trained on the previous year. Have schools and families want to take advantage of the field trips, so we have excess capacity with our partners. So while we have some great successes, there are also some challenges that we face there. I'm going to show just a minute of a video that we made about our 9th grade MWE. This is in biology. It's the first unit. Videos 1 and 2 are about the in-class experience and the field experience. And video 3, which I'm going to show an excerpt from, is about the action project.
Well, the Meaningful Watershed educational experience culminates with an action project. We intentionally designed the Baltimore Watersheds Unit in ninth grade biology to be presented first in the year, so students have the rest of the year to work on an action project. And an action project is a combination of service learning and project-based learning, where we're providing students with a platform to practice or act as science literate citizens.
So to begin, before I started doing the action project and the students started doing their posters and different things, we had to speak about what an action project is. And I showed my students different videos of what pollution looks like. And from there, they generate ideas of how they can possibly start to incorporate and pretty much put their ideas on papers, or some even did rap lyric songs or whatever they could find, or be creative in the way of just implementing action projects throughout our unit.
We just need to recycle and break the cycle and stop treating the earth like it's a trash disposal.
The watershed unit, I loved it. I'm a very hands-on learner, and with the watershed unit, it offers like a lot of opportunities to like really interact with the watershed and learn about it in a very convenient way.
An action project means to me, it's first we learn about what an action plan is. It's studying species that are threatened in the watershed and its ecosystem there too. And our action project allows us to put into aspect how we can help as students in even such a small scale.
Well, I learned a little.
So I'm going to stop there. Just gives you a sense of some of the work going on in that piece to really bring this work and knowledge and action to life in our classrooms. I'd like to also call attention to, within our Develop Environmentally Literate Students, to the effort of our academics colleagues to include environmental literacy for the first time in the integrated curriculum alignment category within the curriculum management plans. This is a great step of really compiling all the disparate units that cross ages and content areas into a single document and working towards a cohesive K-12 experience. Also, our career technology education team has done a fabulous job of increasing some of the green pathways, and you'll see in the appendix some highlights of their work. Moving into create healthy school environments, we completed a number of projects that help improve the health and well-being of the occupants in our buildings. And these are some of the efforts underway, focusing on indoor air quality, on our building automation systems. The real message is that while we have made good progress, we know that much remains and that we are working to identify additional projects going forward. In the effort to conserve natural resources, I wanted to point out that last year our energy use actually declined through a number of efforts and projects. However, our total utility cost actually rose. So this probably happened to any of you who are filling up your gas tank or paying your home utility bills. And so the cost of energy actually increased, but we believe that we avoided about $2.5 million in costs that had our energy use not decreased, our costs would have increased even more. However, we know that, again, much remains to be done, that our overall energy use rate remains higher than the national average using the indicator of the energy use intensity. Also, in conserving natural resources, these are some of the projects that were completed or that were completed in prior years that we saw some of the fruits of from reduced or avoided costs. So using rebates, identifying different projects that we could do to reduce our energy costs. I want to draw attention to the box in the lower right in that there is funding out there and we continue to go after it from particularly at the federal level. However, it is extremely competitive. So for example, we applied for a Department of Energy funding for energy efficiency and they received $5.5 billion of requests for $178 million that they had available. So it is very competitive to obtain those funds. We also work to reduce our solid waste. So schools participated in recycling with partnering with the City Department of Public Works. Our food team and Food Nutrition Services worked hard to reduce food waste. And our information technology team continued e-cycling, and we also did book recycling as well. Last year, you heard about the award from the Environmental Protection Agency for our electric school buses. So we've made great progress on that over the year. We entered into a contract with Highland Fleets to assist with the project. All of the chargers have been installed at our transportation depot, and we expect to be receiving the buses in December. I'm not going to show this video, but this is from our kickoff event, and the video was made by our student media team about that, and has students from Holabird Academy speaking. Next category is improving school green spaces. This is calling attention to our Farm to School team based out of Food Nutrition Services. Did lots of fabulous work both at the farm and in school. However, we know that they're still reaching a fraction of our students, so trying to figure out how we can really expand their work and reach more students across any given year. We have a growing number of schools that have outdoor classrooms and gardens, and that is exciting. We provided assistance. We recognize, however, that adopting those and consistently caring for them and using them continues to be challenging for a variety of reasons. Moving to engage school communities, we worked with a number of staff in different places within the organization to give them knowledge and experiences for integrating this work. So the photo on the left is a training that the Baltimore Tree Trust provided for us to our ground shop about tree pruning and tree care. The photo on the left is one of our teachers participating in our Green Healthy Smart Challenge, which is a partnership with the City Office of Sustainability. We also continued with the Maryland Green School program, and I encourage you to look at some of the examples of their fabulous applications and programs that they completed as part of that program. Continuing in engaged school communities had lots of partners, some long-term, some new. This is really only a partial list. One thing that we are trying to do is help our partners navigate our procurement and selection processes better so that we can get them to our schools more effectively. Next category is build student leadership, and these are photographs of kids across our district, from the little ones at Arundel to the big ones at Digital, working on a variety of different environmental activities. And we know that when kids have the opportunity to participate, they are most often enthusiastic and really engaged in this work. We also know that we need to support the adults who help further these experiences for the kids. So we want to really give these opportunities for our kids to help them be engaged at school and be learning the skills needed for post-secondary success. The final category is promote environmental justice and equity. And as I had said at the beginning, this is a new item in our sustainability plan. And so these are some of the items that we are going to be working on this year, whether it be trying to integrate some environmental items into the Be More Me curriculum, to really making a conscious effort about which schools are participating in our programming and trying to support those schools that have not yet had an opportunity to participate. So our focus for this school year is many things, but these are some that we wanted to highlight for you and that you will be hearing about in the next year's update. And I want to call attention really to the first piece, which ties back to the creation of the sustainability plan and our effort to really be more integrated in with our colleagues across the district. So we are going to be following up with our colleagues once a quarter rather than just once a year for some of the projects, and find out where successes are, where challenges are, how we can help remove any roadblocks, connect people to partners that might be helpful in furthering the work. And so our hope is that that will help us to further the work in a more consistent, broader fashion. So thank you very much for your support and for listening, and I will welcome any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I will open the floor for questions. Commissioner Coy?
No questions, just saying amazing work and congratulations on all of the impact. And while I know you referenced that it is not enough, large enough percentage of students overall, I do know and have seen the benefits of the work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mohammed?
No questions. I'll just echo Commissioner Coy. This is great work, and it's much needed to assure that our children are whole. So thank you for the work. Looking forward to hear more about continued impact.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reed?
Just want to thank Joanna and her team. I appreciate it. And the relative improvement, even though it doesn't show up in the numbers, in terms of dollars. Thanks for trying to move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to close us out, I will mirror the same sentiments as my colleagues. But one, I would be curious, for slide 17, you referenced that procurement is a bit challenging in bringing on vendors to support the school communities. Could you say more about that?
Sure. We have a number of small partners, some of whom are able to donate their services because they are receiving funding from other sources, and some need and want to be paid for their services. And so trying to help them understand how they can be in our system, essentially, so that a principal is, number one, aware of what they have to offer. So working with them to really clarify what the expectations are on each side, because sometimes there can be a lot of miscommunication about what a partner is expecting and what a school is expecting. So I spend time working with partners to really hone in what they have, and then determining what funds a principal can use to pay for that service. So this involves work with our engagement office and with our Office of Achievement and Accountability for different navigating, like our PI portal, which is the Partners in Education portal where schools and partners can exchange sort of offers and requests. And then with OAA, the Office of Achievement and Accountability, about what their rating is. And this has to do with what the evidence of the impact of their work is. And so depending on how much research they have to support their work, it opens up different sources of funding that a principal can use. And so we're just working to try and make those steps clearer so that to reduce misunderstandings, and so that our partners can be paid for work that they want to provide to our schools.
Absolutely. And that actually rolls a bit into my second question for slide number 27. You highlighted that Furley, that we are anticipating being another one of our newer buildings, will be net zero ready. And so I'm just curious if we are currently, or if we're considering any type of data tracking around how these amazing sustainability programs are impacting positively our student experience, and how that value add is helping to move the needle with not just literacy, but math and science as well.
So this is a challenging piece of data to get at that we do not yet have. So for example, our students participating in the Green Healthy Smart Challenge after school programming, we could have kindergartners doing recycling programs, and we could have high schoolers going to Annapolis to lobby about a climate bill. And so how do we figure a tool that can help evaluate that work to show what the impact is on the kid is challenging. So we're, for example, right now on our outdoor learning effort, we're actually partnering to try and do some evaluation of students. And we're first just starting with teachers of like, what are they seeing anecdotally? And then we hope a further step will be, can we actually look at, for those teachers that are bringing their kids outside, could we do a research piece to actually see, is there an impact on student achievement? So it's an open question that we to really further support the work, we do need to try and get at, but have not yet gotten there. And I welcome any of my colleagues who want to jump in and have thoughts on that as well.
I appreciate the thoughtfulness. I know, I believe it was Graceland Park, or no,
The
it was
Net Zero School.
Halliburton.
Mhm.
It was Halliburton that I visited, and I remember, wow, it's such a beautiful facility, and we talked about just the behavioral and cultural shift that it takes to maintain the space and the training that it goes into, one, those that are working to erect the space, but once you're in there, that's a capacity. It's a huge behavioral shift to maintain those wonderful spaces, but also it's a huge learning opportunity for students in a non-traditional way.
Yes, very much agreed. There is both the how we maintain that building that might have different systems than what we have at other schools, or different flooring types that require a different, cleaning protocol, to how do we actually use the data that might be coming off of our solar, for example, and our metering data, and how can that actually be used in a math class to do graphing and opportunities.
Really. Hi, Chief Washington. I know we talked about this at Halliburton, I believe it was.
Yes.
Just
And
the
so I
lit
think that
program training and such.
exactly. And so I do think that it's a really great question, because we've done, and we can explore more, right? We've done research around Weinberg libraries and the impact of the Weinberg libraries on students. And so I think that maybe we start looking for other partners to help us kind of research the impacts for some of our students with the spaces and also exposure to the sustainability resources. And so I think it's a really great question and something for us to explore further.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I know it's a huge cross-functional effort across the system, but we are making strides, and we're making history for our students in such amazing learning spaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can transition to the next compliance report, which is ECAE, School Police. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So presently you have Nick Smith and Major Coleman, and we'll be doing the presentation for School Police. All right, these are our current priorities.
Baltimore City School Police mission. Our mission is just engage kids in a positive manner and just deliver the quality with police services with impartiality. And what we do is we allow the administrators to handle most of the incidents in the school, and we're only there as support for the administration as well as the school community. And we find a lot of these situations can be resolved through the de-escalation techniques and restorative practice. And a lot of this is reinforced by the training that each officer receives. Right here is just an example of how we break down the city. The city is broken down to 7 sectors so that we can have the quickest response to schools. If you look at the chart, the schools with the asterisk beside them, those are let you know where the school-based officers are. The other schools that's on the chart are supported by our mobile units. We have a sergeant, corporal, and normally 2 mobile units in each sector. And those officers provide support to the schools that don't have officers there. Even when if it's not a situation where they're getting a call to the school, we try to get them to just stop in the school, walk through the cafeterias, engage the students in a non-law enforcement capacity, which helps to build that relationship. This is just a list of some of the trainings that we've received recently. One of the trainings that we mainly did this summer is the hate crimes because of the climate right now. So we want to make sure that every employee that works within this district, if there is any type of challenges or any type of situations that come up, that our officers are prepared to provide support for them. A lot of these trainings here are state mandated trainings, such as the physical assessment and psychological assessment. And it's good. And I'm glad to tell you that all of the officers have had the training and they've all passed the training this year. So we're right on line with the state mandates for 2025. This is just some of the community engagements that we've done. I'll tell you, so far this week, we've delivered probably I would say not 7. We have 7 sectors, but we have probably 13 baskets that we've delivered to families across the city. And we will be doing some things for Christmas. We're going to be giving out baskets as well as the breakfast with Santa on December 13th. Any board members that would like to come out, they're invited to come out and just kind of hang out with the school police and some of the community that day. Again, a lot of things that we do is build relationships. We have advisory counseling, and we're now engaging different students to join the advisory council so that we can get their input on how we move forward. These are just some of the recruitment efforts that we've done. I'm not sure if you've seen the video, which we now have playing on this website. Second.
We just lost the presentation. Oh, there
One
it is.
second. Okay. 1 second.
Yeah, but you have to go back to your,
No, she got it.
Baltimore City Public Schools police are looking for officers to join their ranks, and we are offering a generous starting salary at $60,000 and a competitive benefits package. City school police play an integral part in our young people's lives, including providing counseling, de-escalating conflicts, mentoring, and emotional support. They also build relationships and community at their schools. If you want to help make a difference, visit our website for details on how to join our dedicated team.
This is just one of the things that we haven't done it in the past, but this year we created that video with the communications, and we're getting some great reviews on it. We're getting a lot of people involved, interested in the job just based on seeing that video. And I can tell you some of the numbers on this recruitment effort has changed because we have, excuse me, at least offered jobs to at least about 5 or 6 people, and we're still in the process. We have 50 people in the process right now. Hopefully we can get at least 15 out of that, because we understand that doing the process with the background investigation and psychological, sometimes it lowers the amount of candidates that we end up with at the end of the day. But we're going to continue to do everything we can to try to increase the officers here, provide support for the district. Next slide. We're going to go into the school police data right now. Mr. Nick Smith is going to take that over.
all right. Good morning, everyone. So as you can see, we're currently tracking for the previous school year, 7,867 suspensions, 344 diversions, and 26 arrests. In comparison to other school districts, one of the main reasons for our low arrest numbers is because of the diversion program that we currently have in place. The diversion program, as previously mentioned, is more geared towards a restorative practice versus punitive when we're dealing or engaging with our students. Next slide, please. So looking at the previous school years, the diversion program started in school year 15-16, and that year you could see a dramatic decrease in our arrest numbers, and the gradual decrease continued throughout the years. And a main reason for that, as previously stated, is because we're diverting many instances or incidents that would have been previously arrests, minor offenses that would have been previously arrests for our students to the diversion program. Next slide, please. Looking at us in comparison to other counties, one of the main reasons, again, why their numbers are higher is because we are choosing to utilize this program instead of being punitive in our approach, where our officers are only looking for more serious offenses and the lesser offenses are being diverted. We utilize the civilian review board, and it's kind of a checks and balances for our officers. In the past, there were 16 use of force reports in school year 22-23, which none of them were found to be excessive. We continue to ensure that training is provided to our officers, like Major Coleman previously showed, to ensure that officers understand how to engage in students and provide de-escalation tactics when engaging with them versus having to resort to anything that could be viewed as such. Next slide, please.
School police report. Right. In conjunction with several youth organizations, we did use our youth as resources this year, and they worked with us on this report card, and it actually came out more favorable than it did in the past. Next slide. In the past, the 21-22 school year, 2,140 students participated. However, this year it was 3,395 students that participated in the school police report card, which was, I think it was great because we pretty much doubled our numbers, and it still came out, next slide, and more favorable for school police officers. There are some things that we need to work on, and we see some numbers right now that's still a little lower, but we're making progress in every category right here, which is an improvement. And as long as we continue to stay on the path that we are, we're going to get there. Some of the upcoming initiatives. In 2024, we will be piloting body-worn camera program. It's mandated by the state that every police department in the state of Maryland has it by 2025. So we have already put things in motion with the legal department as well as Axion Camera Company. And so we will be moving forward with the pilot. The computers are actually being coordinated with the company to install into the patrol vehicles as well. Any questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I saw you pop on first, Commissioner Muhammad. Any questions?
Yes, I appreciate the presentation. I have a few questions. I don't think we'll get to them all, so I think that I'll just submit some to you, but I'll try to run through a couple. With regards to recruitment, it looks as if we're short a significant amount of officers. And when I look at laterals, when we're doing hiring, it doesn't look like we're bringing in a lot of lateral hires. Is there something we could be doing to attract more lateral hires? And how long does it take for on our end to get back to those officers to be able to assure that we can retain them once they apply?
We have some people that have been interested as far as laterals. However, when we get the laterals, we still go through the background investigation. And what we're finding that a lot of people who are applying to come here from other agencies have had some issues at the agencies that they are. And I have a problem putting someone who I know had some issues in their background in front of the students in Baltimore City. And so we have to be thorough, and we have to investigate it thoroughly before we decide to bring someone on just because they're certified. We have to be conscious of who we put in front of our kids. And that's one of the things that I've been charged with. That's what I've been having my training coordinators to look at. If you have several write-ups for discourtesy or anything regarding or excessive force, I don't think this is the job for you, because we have kids here and you just got to provide the right people in front of them.
Okay, one more and then I'll pass it off. I appreciate it, Vice Chair. The numbers around suspensions, the program that we're using to assure that we reduce, excuse me, not suspensions, arrests. The numbers look amazing, but they bring up some questions. With our shortages and with the incidents we have in school, is this causing us to lean more on Baltimore City Police? And they're taking over some of the more egregious offenses with regards to the arrest because we may not have the manpower, or it's just based on the incidents that we see in other committees, the numbers around our arrests, they don't necessarily match what other committees are or other departments are suggesting should be happening in the schools.
No, what it is that we only arrest for serious offenses. There are things happening in other school districts that this is the problem, and a lot of people don't understand is that Baltimore City, out of 24 school districts across the state, Baltimore City has its own police department. We all go through the police academy. We understand the warrior training. We understand that you have to be prepared for anything. However, when an officer comes on with Baltimore City School Police, they get additional training just working with kids. So we have a bit different approach. We have a different understanding of kids. We give all of our officers implicit bias. We give them youth mental health. And I can tell you that when we took the youth mental health class, it gives you a better understanding of what we're dealing with and how we're dealing with the kids and engaging the kids. So what we do, we try to take that approach for allowing administration to deal with the situation if possible, or we look at diversion programs, because it's not about just putting the kids into the system. A lot of other jurisdictions, the main office call, the local jurisdiction, the officer comes to the school. They would take them right up. They just arrest them and take them out. We can do that approach. That's when we had the high numbers. But we're trying to see what's benefit the school as well as the kid.
Can I caveat that as well? So I would also like to caveat with that. Also with the diversion program, we've also pivoted our diversion program to where in the near future it should be going to our wholeness center. So with student wholeness taking over diversion, it's more also, again, focus on restorative practices, and there will be more wraparound resources for these students versus, what we were using previously was teen court and mediation. However, now when we find students that might be in need of additional counseling, they might be in need of other kind of social supports, the wellness team is more equipped to handle that. So there is a lot more going on with diversion than just, looking to not arrest a child. We're looking to actually find solutions to these kids that are going through some things.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'll pass it over. And any other questions, I'll submit in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. Commissioner Coy?
Yeah, I have one question that I'll ask here. I know there's been a lot of focus, and I appreciate the updates on the recruitment efforts and the recruitment video and the benefits of having more police officers to share the load and things that relate to police overtime and otherwise being alleviated by increasing those numbers. My question relates a little bit, Major Coleman, to some of the comments that you were also speaking to about the quality of police officers that are letting into school police. And I recall from last year, especially around some of the contract and the increase and some of the work that we did, the evaluation process for school police in the past has been fairly binary. That there's only like two ways that police officers can be scored in their evaluation. What plans exist that you could speak to, or to bring a little bit more nuance to how we're understanding the performance of school police and the expectations around that you have, and that you've communicated here about what type of police officer behavior and interactions with our students you would want to be recognizing or discouraging.
You're saying how the evaluation of the officers, you're saying?
Correct.
Or as far as bringing them on?
I think those two things go hand in hand in terms of like both what are your expectations for those that you are hiring, then also how is the evaluation of officers supporting that for those that are on the team as well?
The evaluation is kind of limited because that's guided by our human capital office. So when we evaluate officers, we have to follow the policies that's negotiated with their union. But when we look at officers that we want to bring on, we want to bring people who want to engage kids, who want to work with students and the staff. Sometimes you get officers who want to come on, but they have the mindset that they want to run, gun, and jump out of cars, chase people. That's what a lot of people do in law enforcement, and I got that. But when you're working with young people, I think you have to have a little patience. You have to have a better understanding. That is one of the reasons why we went to implementing youth mental health, things like that, so that officers can understand implicit bias, where they're working, and some of the issues that some of the kids are coming with. I'm born and raised in Baltimore City, so I know that some of the kids are coming with some luggage. And so we have to understand it. And we have to do whatever we can do to provide support to them as well. It's not about just arresting the kid, it's about providing support. Help you out, or sir?
I think we lost you there for a second, but at least on my side, it cut out.
I did. I lost him also.
But I do appreciate your response here, and can certainly follow up some of my question with human capital as you outlined there, and that broader process. Appreciate though your care and concern for that you brought up as well, in what you outlined in the presentation.
Are you all still with us?
Hello? Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to fire my technician right here, my tech person. I just messed.
Commissioner Reed, did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's just a simple one. Thank you, Major. I really appreciate your work, and I know you have a heavy lift in a lot of areas. My question's pretty simple. You talked about the advisory council. I haven't seen much in terms of the advisory council, but can you give me a quick and skinny in terms of what the mission is and what's the level of engagement between your staff and the advisory council?
So.
This is Cora Parsons, Special Assistant to the Chief of Schools. So we have been working with school police and our student base. We're actually in the process of gaining more recruitment for students. We started off last school year with about 14 students, which were middle school through high school based. We sent out advertisement, and I'm actually currently working with our school operations managers to see if we can gain some more students to engage with our officers. And basically the point of the Student Advisory Committee is to gauge our students' reactions and engagement with and just increase the engagement with school police officers. When we had our initial meetings last school year, a lot of the things that our students discussed was the issues that they were having with our city-based school police officers. They thought that it was more of like a complaint line thing. And so when we invited them and gave them the opportunity to team build and things like that, and they understood that it was about more aligning with their school-based officer, they were still excited about the program and they wanted to remain in it, because a lot of the reports, as we saw in the school police report card, the students have good relationships with their school-based police officers, but we're trying to reach out to those other students who may not have school-based police officers, just so they can understand, even though they may not have a school-based officer, they're still there to support them, and that we have other programs and initiatives that we're working on. We're just working on trying to evolve the presence of school police with our students and just continue to bridge that gap, because as Major Coleman stated, we do have a new wave of officers coming in, and we really want to emphasize the importance of engaging with our students, having a true connection with them, and just being on a better relationship with them, so that when things do arise, we're able to maybe mitigate that And also, we've had many incidents where the relationship with our students and our school police officers has given us intel on things that could have happened inside of the school building that we have been able to prevent. And that's because the child had a good relationship with their school-based officer.
Thank you. I think that'd be good for the whole board to know in terms of the presentation, a future presentation, just in terms of how you talked about restorative practices and not being punitive, how the kids have helped in the restorative practices. I think that'd be really helpful.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Reed. And for the sake of time, I am going to submit my 2 questions in writing, but I also ask that you forward any information about upcoming activities that you like board participation or to the board office. Thank you so
Okay.
much for the presentation. We will now transition to DDA, compliance report, DDA, grant fiscal reporting.
Okay, this is Mary Ann Cox. I'm asking Jonathan Turner to bring, if he could share his screen with the PowerPoint presentation. Renee Calvi will talk us through it.
Yep, happy to help again, Marianne. Give me 1 second.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Always welcome.
Okay, good morning, Renee. If you're trying to talk, the call is muted.
Good morning, everyone. Renee Calvi, Accounting Manager for Restricted Grants. What you see here is a display of active grants as of June 30th, 2023. We displayed a list of active grants awarded during FY23. We provided an Excel spreadsheet which pretty much has a listing of all of the grants to support the bullet points here, which for FY23, the report that we provided contains 3 tabs. One tab is for the current FY23 grants, and then the second tab, carryover grants that were still operating when we came into FY23, and then any expired grants during the fiscal year. Some of those to consider, we had 64 grants awarded in FY23, of which 82% were spent or obligated thus far. We had 93% of expired grants. When the largest balances run through 12/31/2023, 6/30/24, or 9/30/24. So the largest unspent balance, we still have more time to spend on those particular grants. Other grants that are shown on the list, their balances could be eligible for grant period extensions upon request. We had 5% of the unused balance that related to third-party billing fund, which is not a traditional grant. The balances on those funds will flow to fund balance for future use. Next slide, please. And then also the second tab that you'll be able to see in the report provided was active carryover grants as of June 2023. Again, it displayed the active grants awarded prior to FY23 that were still remaining that had balances. Of those listings, the 53 grants operating from prior fiscal years, 58% were spent or obligated thus far. 99% of those unspent balances have expiration dates through 9/30/2024 and 12/31/2024, which means there's additional time to spend down on those balances. And other grant balances are also eligible for grant period extension upon request. And then finally, we had a slide for expired grants as of June 2023, of which 76% of the grants expired and 94% were spent. Any questions?
Thank you so much for the overview. I'll start with Commissioner Coy.
For sake of time, I'm happy to submit a few questions in writing, but I do appreciate the level of detail and all of the information that's provided.
Commissioner Reed, any questions?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Mohammed?
None, thank you.
I just have one question as a point of clarification. Is the spreadsheet that we received, is that encompassing of all school-based grants as well?
It is. It includes all school-based grants and central office as well, yes. Well, let me clarify that. Any that where city schools, those grants are being monitored on city schools' books. There may be some schools who are managing grants directly from their school. And of course would be a smaller dollar amount normally. And then also if there were no grant restrictions, no grant terms, no reporting, then they could manage it from their schools. But if there are any grant restrictions, then it would be managed from central office and it would be on this list.
That was very helpful. Thank you so much. I think that wraps it for this presentation. Thank you so much for the presentation and overview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For my colleagues, does anyone have a question, a really quick question for the written update around immunizations? Item 5.01. Are there any questions around that item, Commissioner Coy? Commissioner Mohammed?
None.
Commissioner Reed?
No, thank you.
Okay, and as a matter of record, Dr. Juckins or Tanisha Moore, is there anyone signed up for public comment?
I have not gotten any requests.
Okay, thank you. We can transition to procurement.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ted King. I'm representing procurement this morning. There are 17 board items that I'm asking for y'all to consider. Each of these items are consistent with our board strategic priorities. Okay, the first item is 15.01. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Bronner Builders Incorporated in the total amount of $2,202,520. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at Booker T. Washington Building number 130. Any questions on this item?
Commissioner Coy?
I have a question that that generally relates, that generally relates to the bathrooms. There's a whole series of ones that are here. My question is around gender neutral bathrooms. What is, as these upgrades are happening, do you have any insight to know to what degree we are providing gender neutral bathrooms in different city schools as well?
Is Maurice on or Cindy?
Yep, I'll take it. So this is Cindy Smith. I'll take it, Maurice. So this is Cindy Smith, Executive Director of Planning, Design, and Construction. Every one of these restroom projects, both the ones that were completed under the last phase and the ones that are completed under this phase, all have an intentionally constructed gender-neutral facility as part of the project. So there is an identified restroom that will be converted or a new one created to support our gender-specific needs or gender non-specific needs.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, I'm gonna go to 15.02. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Bronner Buildings Incorporated in the amount of $914,922. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at Charles Carroll Barrister Elementary School number 34. Any questions?
Not seeing any hands, we can transition to the next one.
Okay. This is board item 15.03. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Bronner Buildings Incorporated in the amount of $1,368,470. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at Rosemont Pre-K to 8 School number 63. Any questions on this one?
Not seeing any not seeing any hands, we can transition to the next one.
Okay. Okay, this is item 15.04. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Bronner Buildings Incorporated in the amount of $1,429,056. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at Westport Academy Pre-K to 8 School number 225. Any questions on this item?
Not seeing any hands, we can transition.
Okay. This is item 15.05. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of competitively solicited contract with Janus Contractors Incorporated in the total amount of $1,464,426. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at William Packer Elementary School number 83. Any questions?
Not seeing any hands, we can transition.
Okay. Item 15.06. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Janus Contractors Incorporated in the total amount of $1,078,943. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at Wood Home Pre-K to 8 School number 205. Any questions?
Not seeing any hands,
Okay.
we can transition.
Okay. This is item 15.07. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Janus Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $1,554,322. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at Coldstream Park Building number 31.
We can transition.
Okay. Item 15.08. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with BMC Services LLC in the total amount of $908,280. The contract provides restroom upgrade services at George Washington Elementary School number 22.
We can
Any questions?
transition.
Okay.
We can.
Okay. This is item 15.09. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to increase the total contract amount with Clyde McHenry Incorporated from $1,081,391 to $1,258,391, an overall increase of $177,000. This contract provides window and door replacement services at Cecil Elementary School number 7.
As it relates to the,
I'm sorry.
as it relates to
Commissioner
the
Corey.
doors, are these interior doors or exterior doors? Out of curiosity.
Commissioner Coy, this is Maurice Gaskins. I am the Director of Construction. This project is for the exterior envelope for windows and exterior doors only at Cecil.
Thank you.
For this project.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions on this item?
No, but I do just want to highlight that of the few that we've just reviewed, every single one of them have had a MBE requirement as a prime and subcontractor. Thank you. And or I want to name that. That is tremendous. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me go to 15.10. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a charter school lease agreement between the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioner, the leaseor, and the Baltimore Curriculum Project, the leasee. This lease provides for Baltimore Curriculum Project to operate Hampstead Hill Academy School 47, a Baltimore City charter school located at 500 South Linwood Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland 21224. That is the leased premises and consisting of approximately 60,513 square feet.
I don't see any hands. We can transition.
Okay. Item 15.11. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to amend the initial school bus passenger van transportation contract to add Ram Bus Service as an additional vendor. The approval of this amendment will increase the total number of approved vendors to provide estimated 250 daily bus and passenger routes from 11 to 12. The contract also provides transportation services for athletic trips, summer school, and cultural field trips. The contract term is November 1st, 2023 through August 31st of 2028. The estimated total amount of this contract is $230,010,000. Any questions about that one?
I do not see any hands. We can transition.
Okay. Okay. This is item 15.12. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to increase the contract with BMC Services LLC and Denver Elec Incorporated to provide plumbing, repair, maintenance, and replacement services to Baltimore City Public Schools on an as-needed basis. The board is requesting to increase the estimated annual contract from $4 million annually to $9 million annually, an annual increase of $5 million. The contract term is October 26, 2022 through October 25th, 2025 with 1 2-year renewal option. Any questions?
I do not see any hands. We can transition.
Okay. Okay. We're into section 16.01. The Chief Human Capital Officer requests the board's approval to exercise the first of three-year renewal options with Care First of Maryland to provide a self-insured medical preferred provider organization for Baltimore City Public Schools, employees, and their eligible dependents. The contract term is January 1st, 2019 through December 31 of 2026 with 2 3-year remaining renewal options. Any
Commissioner
questions?
Coy, I saw your hand.
Yeah, my question relates to Care First generally here with both the PPO and the POS one that's next. A year ago this time, I believe it was right around this time, there were some significant question marks around some of the local Care First and the various hospitals participating. I know those were resolved a year ago, but I'm curious, is there anything that we should be aware of relating to that as you know, or is that fully resolved, no issues, no concerns there?
Is anyone, I guess, from Human Capital here?
Is Zelda on?
And maybe the request then can just be that when this comes up to the full board for vote, just ensuring that we have any insight into into the issue from a year ago and how that has played out, or if it's fully resolved, just being able to speak to that.
Was that question captured by the team?
Yes, Commissioner Core and Vice Chair Roberts, I recorded it. I'll make sure that human capital staff gets it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Always welcome.
Okay. Let me go to item 16.02. The Chief Human Capital Officer requests the board's approval to exercise the first of three-year renewal options with Care First of Maryland to provide a self-insured medical point of service option for city schools employed and their eligible dependents. The contract term is January 1st, 2019 through December 31st of 2026 with 2 3-year remaining renewal options. Any questions about this one?
Commissioner Coy, did you have a follow-up to this one? You're muted.
No, my only question was relating to both of them broadly, but not sort of specific to POS versus PPO.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, this is item 16.03. The Chief Human Capital Officer requests the board's approval to exercise the first of three-year renewal options with Kaiser Foundation Health Plan of the Mid-Atlantic, Kaiser Permanente, to provide a fully insured health maintenance organization, or HMO, for city school employees and their eligible dependents. The contract term is January 1st, 2019 through December 31st of 2026, with 2 3-year remaining renewal options. Any questions about this item?
I do not see any hands, but I'm curious. Commissioner Reed, do you have any questions?
No, I'm okay so far. I just have a question at the end.
Okay,
Maybe help me with. Thank you.
we can transition.
Okay. This is item 16.04. The Chief Human Capital Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively bid contract with Psych Incorporated to provide employee assistance program, or an EAP, for employees and their eligible dependents of the Baltimore City Public Schools. The total contract amount is $675,312. The contract term is January 1st, 2024 through December 31st of 2026 with 1 3-year renewal option. Any questions about this one?
Yes, Commissioner Coy.
Yeah, my question is more of a request that when this comes up to the full board, the ability to speak to ways that the EAP will be shared with staff. I just know that EAP programs are historically or typically underutilized, that there's not as much awareness about them. And just thinking as we're making this investment, how we can ensure that city school staff are, know more about it, know how to access it, are benefiting from it. Some of those things I'd love to hear, just how we can elevate the awareness about this as a resource for our staff.
Was the team able to capture the request from Commissioner Coy?
Got it.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Okay. And I believe this next one is the final item on the agenda. The Chief Accountability Officer requests the board's approval of a 1-year contract extension with NCS Pearson, formerly SchoolNet, in the amount of $385,836.50. The contract extension is necessary to receive ongoing services, which include software maintenance and support, product upgrades and enhancements, and professional development delivery. The contract term is from December 13th, 2023 through June 30th of 2024. Any questions on this item?
I see you on. Do you have a question, Commissioner Coy? Okay. Now that we've concluded all the items, Commissioner Reed, you said you had a final question?
I guess my question was stimulated by Commissioner Mohammed. I guess in terms of the procurements we get across the board, or I guess these are areas you probably can help me, Madam Chair, because you know better than I do. Academic, professional, technical, and operational. And most of the WMBE contracts we see tend to be operational. So I guess my question is, when we look at total procurement, I mean, they've done a good job in terms of contracts for established operational situations in terms of WMBE. But how does WMBE look in terms of total procurement? Because during the COVID period, we had a lot of no bid contracts, which made sense. And also in the academic and the technical professional space, we have a lot of no bid contracts. But of the total procurement, what does the WMBE percentage look like in terms of percentage and also dollar amount? I was just curious about that. I've never seen that number.
No worries. I think you raised a great point. And while we typically receive an update, not by way of a compliance report, or maybe it is a compliance report, I think what I hear you asking for is an update on total spend down as it relates to minority business participation.
Yeah, because we get the number in terms of how it looks in terms of the contracts for bid, but we don't look at it as for total contracts, including for bid and no bid contracts.
And then have it disaggregated out
Right.
into the categorical use of the contracts.
Yeah. Well, like I said, maybe you've seen it or the other commissioners have seen it, but I don't remember ever seeing it.
Well, it's a relevant question and
Yeah.
it's timely. Did the team capture that request as well?
Yes, Vice Chair and Commissioner Reed recorded the questions for you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think that concludes, and if I hurry up and say goodbye, we will be on time. Everyone have a great holiday break. Make sure you eat and be merry and spend time with your family, friends, and loved ones. This is End of Call. Have a great day, everyone.
Happy
Thank
Thanksgiving.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.